Good afternoon, world, and what a world we live in. It's moments past noon here in Waxahachie, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State. Today is November 7th, 2024, and it is the 16th episode of Great and Good News. We're broadcasting live from our palatial second story studio in downtown Waxahachie in the shadows of the historic Ellis County Courthouse. I'm your host, Jeff Lynch. It gives me great pride, pleasure, and honor to introduce our host, your friend and mine, Scott Brooks.
Thank you, brother. Another nice shirt.
Thank you, sir.
Styling
Hey,
and profiling.
it's the new
as we
winter
say.
look.
Hey, it's good.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Will that keep you warm?
not significantly, but I've got
Yeah,
a lot
well,
of sweater vests I can put on top of
yeah,
it.
it was. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome everyone. Thank you for those of you who are on Instagram. Welcome to our show. Those of you on Facebook, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube, thank you for being here. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday. Our show is called Grit and Good News, as you just heard. Our phone number is up above the elephant. It's not there, Sammy. Is about to be. Is it on the screen? Oh, I don't see it on. That's right. I don't see it on mine. But right above the elephant is the phone number. Jeff's going to read it to you.
It is 972-268-9441, 972-268-9441. I don't know why I don't have it memorized. I've memorized my driver's
too.
license, my social security number, my
Yeah.
bank number.
Me too.
Whatever.
We'll make a point. We'll both memorize it by next week. You can call in. We'll take your calls. We'll listen to every word you've got to say. We do like feedback and we like discourse, the healthy kind. And despite the bombast, sometimes we want to hear what people have to say and give you as much airtime as you reasonably need. So today is Thursday, 2 days after the election. This has been a mighty big week, big week in our country. For those,
Historic.
yeah, historic. You're right. It's the first time since Grover Cleveland, which was in, I don't know what year it was, 1890 something, I think, that Grover Cleveland he'd served one term, lost, then came back and won a second term. So he didn't have his consecutive. This is only the second time that's happened in the history of the United States. So those of us that are conservative are pleased with the results. Those who are not conservative aren't so pleased. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. I do want to, before I get started, I want to mention that this morning, I've told Jeff about this and Sammy knows about it too, but a lady came in to see me, a Democrat, and she wanted to talk to me about some of the things I've written recently. And she had all of her notes. She's very, very kind. It was an enjoyable conversation, although we strongly, vehemently, I would say, disagree on almost everything. But she approached it much like I hope I can approach it in a one-on-one conversation, and that is to say, this is what you wrote, Scott, and have said. This is my response to it, and here's why. And so she did that. Now we could still be talking if we continued, but it was only maybe 15, 20-minute conversation. But I really appreciate her, and her name is Mrs. Clark, and I just really appreciated some of the things that she expressed and that I expressed. Well, Jeff and I are going to talk about here in just a minute in our discussion, but it was the kind of healthy discussion that really, if society today, whether it's about politics or anything else, social issues, if we could have that kind of conversation in that way, we'd be better off.
And when you make a comment, so I don't have the Facebook posts. They're all coming from him, and so what you get out of me is what you get right here.
Right.
But if you disagree with Scott and you tell him why you disagree, he'll respect it. He probably won't be changed by what you say. And then if he tells you his opinion about what you said, and you probably won't change your opinion either. But the thing is, it's America. We're allowed to have a healthy discourse. And so that's the good thing.
Yeah, the conversation with Miss Clark, she walked out. She was not a subscriber before. She walked out and subscribed. And she asked me, this was the cool thing, and I mentioned it to you, is that I said, Mrs. Clark, after about 20 minutes, I said, Mrs. Clark, if you can walk out of here having accomplished what you came in to accomplish, what would that accomplishment be? And she said that you will, Scott, you will personally and publicly hold Trump accountable. And I said, I'll make a deal with you. You hold me accountable to holding him accountable, and we got a deal. Because the truth is, I even going back to 2016, when we endorsed Trump at the Daily Light, I said there are things about Trump that I don't like. And but in the comparison of the choice we had then, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, it was Donald Trump, much like it was this time. So I just appreciate the conversation and would say, I mean, you can come in and see Jeff too.
Yeah,
Jeff has his own opinions. He doesn't not we don't always agree. Styles are
yeah.
different, but the
And
same thing
I
with
do
you.
have a Jeff at Waxahachie.son email. And
WatchAsHisSon.com. Yeah,
yeah,
you almost got it right.
yeah, almost.
And Jeff is in our place. You can if you want to sit down and talk with him, you can set a time up. We have space in our building. So uh, it was just a really nice conversation. That said, we wanted to have a few minutes to talk about the election. So let me just start by asking you, what is the general going into it? What were you feeling during it? The whole night, what were you feeling? And then when because I know you had to go to bed before it was final, when you found out what had happened, what were your feelings?
Well, let's go through the whole process of everything leading up to the election. I was scared. I mean, because I thought I think it's going Kamala's way early, and I saw enough things to convince me that things were starting to change, but
In her direction?
in her
Yeah, right.
oh no, away from
Oh,
her
away from
direction.
okay, yeah.
But
What made you what were you hesitant or scared or concerned because did you start feeling in these days leading up to the election that things were going in her favor? Or you just
well,
had trepidation because of
I
2020?
had trepidation because of the whole deal, and of course the polls, which I don't believe in, uh, because you can manipulate them so many different ways, and with the biased media, but they were pushing that she was ahead, and so then people think she's ahead, and so then people don't want to be on the losing side, and so that generates more momentum for them. But when the tide was turning and suddenly they were saying that things are getting too close to call, then I'm thinking, well, if they're too close to call, they're really probably actually in Trump's favor. And I'm just seeing enough continued blunders on her part, and just kind of conversations with people, just enough people that just didn't think she added up. And so I felt it was going her way. And then through the night, boy, he started getting those states early,
Yeah.
and that really helped, and so I kept feeling better. But I really think that and I had this conversation with my oldest daughter yesterday at lunch as we were discussing my youngest daughter's text tirade to me at 7:02 in the morning, and the older one is convincing me that, you know what, she just needs she's venting,
Yeah.
and you're the source of her venting. So,
Right.
on my broad shoulders, I will take that. But um, what Kristen said to me was she knew so many people who didn't like Donald Trump,
Mhm.
and they liked Kamala for the different reasons, but they were worried about taking care of their family, and they were worried about the state of our country's economy and what that had to do with their personal family economy, and they voted not with their heart, but they made a policy vote.
Yeah.
And I think that was replicated across the country, and that's why when they talked about the coalition that had come together, an unexpected group, who would have ever thought Latinos, black men, and suburban housewives?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think those suburban housewives would be on Kamala's? And when you think about the fact that there's more women than men in the
Right.
world, and all the people on that liberal side that says, well, we need a woman president. We have to have a woman president. Well, we don't need anything, we need the best person. So people were voting with their heads,
Hmm.
not their hearts. And I think that that was one of the biggest things that made a difference. When you've got Starr County in West Texas that has gone Democratic every year since 1892,
Right.
giving it to Trump,
Is
and
that one of the counties on the southern border by chance?
it was, no, it was actually way west.
Okay.
And the other thing that I think we had a conversation, we had a whole topic once about celebrity endorsements,
We
didn't we?
did. We did.
And my feeling that celebrity endorsements for either direction, a celebrity endorsement has never meant much to me. If you're Hulk Hogan, I admire your wrestling, and if you're a football player, I admire your football. If you're an actor, I admire your acting. Although you know, acting like somebody else,
Yeah.
I guess it's a nice quality, but it's not really something I admire that much.
Yeah.
And if you're a great singer, I know I'm not a great singer, but none of those things make me care about your political opinion
Right.
one bit. And
Right.
I also I was hearing different things on the radio that the celebrity endorsements worked against Kamala because people are thinking, guess what? That person's not relatable to me. That multi millionaire billionaire person, they don't feel any of my pain.
Yeah.
And why are they a Democrat? What I mean, do they really care about people, or are they just trying to sell albums and movies and TV shows?
Yeah, I
So
think that's
yeah,
all really valid. It's interesting about the celebrities. I think it's important for us, despite how deep we may be in on one side of the aisle or the other. In my case, I'm all in as a conservative, not a Republican, but a conservative. But I like to, as much as I can handle it well, go to the MSNBCs or CNNs of this world and listen for a little bit. So the other night I did, and last night I did. My wife and I did, and there was a discussion on MSNBC where Joy Reid said was justifying trying to justify Kamala's what she referred to, Joy Reid referred to as a flawless, incredible campaign. So give her that. That's her view of it. So be it. But what she used to justify that was these celebrity endorsements. Matter of fact, she said Queen Latifah, who doesn't endorse anybody, endorsed Kamala Harris. And because of that, it was a flawless campaign. That proves it was a flawless campaign. What Joy Reid can't seem to understand, you and I could tell her, her mother could tell her that what you're saying is the actual opposite. It has the opposite effect. Yet these folks like talking heads, which we are in our own little community here, don't see that. They don't see it. And so for me, much like you, the idea going into Tuesday night was, as we said on our last show before the election, the logical part of me says this is a no-brainer. Our economy's in shatters.
right,
We're struggling across the world. We got issues with democracy on the left with the way Kamala and all that happened. So logically, how can we not vote Trump in as a country? In my mind, my heart, I mean, it's that I say, oh, I'm a little bit trepidatious here because I thought the same thing in
right,
2020.
right,
One of the things that has come up a lot on a lot of different sources, in a lot of different sources, is that the vote total that Biden got this time around, or that Kamala Harris got this time around, was 10 or 15 million. I'd have to go back and look at it, but well in, millions less than Biden got in 2020. Trump's were not that big of a difference. And so a number of people on the left are opining that, well, there must be something going on here, because how can that be? How can Biden have gotten 80 million votes and Kamala Harris get 60 something million votes? How can that happen? And my response is, well, I think it may give you pause or reason to look at some of the dastardly stuff that happened in 2020. And the
right.
other part of it is that Kamala Harris isn't nearly well liked. I don't think she's well liked at all. But in comparison to Biden, the issue, CNN had a graph. It showed the whole United States. in the question, it had Jake Tapper and I forget the other John, forget his last name, but Tapper said, "Can you show us the map on the map where Harris outperformed
Biden.
Biden?" So he
Okay.
called it up, and you know what? There
No.
was Tapper even said, "Really? There's no place on this map, no county, no precinct, no state, no whatever, no region where she outperformed Biden. There was zero." So you say to
Yeah.
yourself, was that whole thing in June or early July when it happened? Looking back, you gotta know that they're kicking themselves, saying, "What did we do by running him off and putting Harris in?" Because she didn't do any better
Yeah.
anywhere. She did worse.
Yeah. Well, in the questions of impropriety from the last election, which continued to be brought up, thank God it was a mandate, and that it was spread all across the country.
Yeah.
You can't have fraud every place, and when
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, the betters, although the betting industry was sold on Trump going to win this thing hands
yeah,
down. But the idea of it, if we'd have said, I'll bet you, if I'd have said on Tuesday in our show, I'll bet you that the winner is declared tonight emphatically, and that the next day or maybe that same night that there would be a concession, you would have said, "I'll bet you that ain't going to happen. That's not going to happen." Yeah, but it did. I mean, really and truly, Fox called it at 12:30 a.m. NBC, interestingly enough, who had the same numbers at 12:30 as they did when they called it at 3:30, waited 3 hours as though
right,
we're going to deny this ain't happening. This is
right,
not happening.
right.
I'm refusing to believe it. And finally, they had to announce it. But we had it. It was over all in that, and that's compared to 2020 or 2000. I mean, that's unheard of anymore. And Arizona and Nevada still haven't called it. But when they do, Trump will have won all battleground
Mm,
states plus Iowa. Uh, and if I'd have offered you that bet on Tuesday, you'd have said, "I'll." There is no way either one of them are going to trump.
right, right.
Pardon the pun. Trump the battleground states.
So even though he won all those battleground states, that the fact that we can look at election after election and say 50 states. We got 43 states that we know what's going to happen,
Hmm.
and only seven that are up. And it talks about the diversity of our great land,
Yeah.
and how different every state is. But a state has its identity and its um, just whatever that's the
Persona, maybe.
persona.
Yeah.
And if you look at the maps, also you'll see that those clusters of states are geographically. Rita and I were looking at the map the other day and looking about all those blue states hugging the left coast,
Hmm.
hugging the east
Yeah.
coast, and
The Northeast.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really
it's
is. It's an interesting thing. A study for me would have to say answer the question: is the fact that we know going into 2028 they're going to be those same 43, they're going to be red, part of them are going to be red, part of them are going to be blue. We already know that. I need to know whether or not that's good or bad. It seems to
well,
me we're set in our ways. So like I would say to Miss Clark, we're not going to convince each other to change our minds. Is that good or is that bad? uh
well.
yeah.
The other question is, will they call those battleground states next year? I mean,
Yeah,
but
or
but
next
but
time, yeah.
in 4 years now. If you get two elections in a row, those battlegrounds are going a different direction.
Hmm.
Then suddenly they become red states.
Yeah, well,
You know?
I mean, it takes a spectacular 4 years for those blue to turn red or the red to turn blue.
Yeah.
So, just a couple of things before we close this part of it. I did make note of that Harris in her speech yesterday, which actually I think was a lot of platitudes, which I get it. I don't really have any harsh criticism of her speech. She did in her speech, as I mentioned to you, say, "I I promise to work with Donald Trump
Hmm.
in this transition." But last week, Donald Trump was Hitler and a Nazi. And so for me, it's amazing how things just totally reverse in a matter of an election. Not unlike the Washington Post and a few other news, USA Today, no longer going to endorse, uh, which their staffs are going berserk over it. By the way, they're no longer going to endorse. My feeling is, well, Bezos, who owns the Washington Post, isn't going to endorse Harris because he believes Trump's going to win, and he doesn't want Trump, the projected idea that Trump is going to be, I'm going to come in and I'm going to shut down the Washington Post, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Bezos believes that might happen. So, he says, well, let's not endorse. His
Right.
staff went ballistic. And I don't know
Right.
if you saw with the New York Times, their entire hundreds of election reporters went on strike on Tuesday, uh, because they don't want it's probably wages and a few other things, not the least of which would be this: are we going to stop endorsing people?
Right.
So anyway, if you want to if you can stomach it and you want to spend 30 minutes and for kicks and giggles go on X, you'll see incredible discourse. Some of it good, some of it
Vitriol.
bad. It's amazing to me. All right, it's lunchtime. Cancun's is the place you ought to go. Cancun's is Tex-Mex restaurant here in Waxahachie. It's been here for a number of years. They're in a new building that was built about 4 years ago. It's up on 77, just north of 287, a couple of miles. It's in front of, well, I'm not going to say it. It's just go towards, it's before you get to Butcher Road, on 77 on your left. So Cancun's great food, great ambiance, great people, wonderful service. They have a deal going on right now where if you spend $20 on your entrees or food or whatever, that you get a free order of sopapillas. To get that, you got to go to Down Home, the app Down Home, find the coupon section, and then show it to Cancun's when you're there. Cancun's had a great bar setting, um, great drinks, patio. This time of year, the patio is the place to be. So Cancun's, as Sammy said, we love Cancun's. All right. Um, I about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, maybe 2 weeks ago. I think it was three. I wrote a column about one of our sweet dogs. We have three dogs. Two of them are little hellions, little Lucifers, as I call them. Chihuahuas. One of them is named Binks, and the other one is named EJ. Binks is built like Micah Parsons. EJ's built like I don't know, tall, like Nowitzki.
Dirk.
Yeah, Dirk. I'm sorry. And they're precious. We love them. We had Maggie was our Pyrador, a cross between a Labrador and a Pyrenees, solid white, about 80 pounds. The most beautiful dog in every way. We all think it's like
Everybody thinks they
children.
have the
Yeah,
prettiest and smartest dog in
it's
the
like
world.
children. But Maggie was our matriarch, our the glue that just held us all together. And in the past, she's about 10, 11 years old, and she just started ailing about a year ago, and it progressively got worse. She became blind and deaf, and in the past 2 weeks, it really gotten worse. And our whole concern, just as you concerned about Layla and everybody concerned about their pet, is she in our case feeling any pain? And the minute I sense, or my wife sense, that we both sense that she's in pain, it's time to do the right thing for Maggie. And uh, sadly, deeply so, last Friday was that time. So last Friday we sent Maggie to heaven, the Rainbow Bridge, all that stuff. It was, I will tell you, the second most sad, difficult experience I've ever had. It's like the first one being the loss of my dad. Uh, and I didn't expect it. I mean, I love Maggie, loved her. And I can't even say anything beyond, I just loved, Sonya loved Maggie. And
I came in to see Scott
yeah,
on Monday. This had happened on Friday, and
I,
he was still pretty
I
shook.
was a basket case, and got a deepest breath I ever took as we prepared for today because we wanted to talk about it. Make sure I hold it together. But if I see a picture of her, or if somebody makes a comment, I'll lose it. And I'm no different than most other people. But the idea that our pets become so integrated, so part of our DNA, is really, it's not a phenomenon because they're animals, but Maggie and Binks and EJ are critical critical to our family and to our well-being and to our happiness. And what we experienced last Friday, our vet is Waxahachie veterinary, Dr. Bell. We love them. They have treated Maggie for a long time and assured us that we were doing the right thing. But that experience was incredible. It was surreal. And and so for those of you that are pet owners, which most of you are, I would say if I can do it, if you ever have to face it, and my hope is that this is the way that it either goes naturally and there's no pain, or that you're able to set your pet free as opposed to some accident or something awful, tragedy. This would have been my preference. Um,
And your column was beautiful,
thank
and
you.
you had a two-word expression in there, and I read it, and it resounded with me because in my poem that I read a few weeks ago about our dog, too much is too much, and I make a reference to is her boundless love. Does her boundless love make make the problems that I see with her, which are just puppy problems, do they make it worthwhile? And
Mhm.
ultimately they do. And there's a reason that we call our dogs man's best friends.
Right.
People like their cats. I've never heard the expression the cat is man's best friend. Have
Yeah.
you never?
Yeah.
Canary,
Right. Yeah.
python, goldfish.
Yeah.
Okay, but the dog is man's best friend.
Right.
In our life, we're a retired couple. Our children are grown. Our grandchildren don't live close to us. It's Rita and I
Yeah.
and Layla.
And Layla.
And guess what? She is she is the straw that stirs the drink, as the
Yeah.
great Reggie Jackson says. And we find so much delight in the simplest thing. Uh, the way she sits, her habits, just the things that we can. So much of it's predictable. Oh, she's doing that again.
Hmm.
Okay, but it gives us a thrill,
It
and
does.
and
Yeah.
and and they are family to you, and
Yeah.
um,
Maggie used to, when Maggie was healthy, when I would come home from work or Sonya would come home from wherever, Maggie, instead of jumping on us, she would just jump like a horse in a rodeo. Like she would do her,
oh
and
yeah, I get it.
it was so endearing. You know, one of the things about this experience is that our two dogs, one of our dogs, uh, was born and we had it when Maggie was already in the home. So he's 5 now and little Binks, and he's never known anything but Maggie.
Right,
EJ, who's like the ditziest dog on the planet, surfer dude, sleep all day, and a bomb could go off and that dog isn't gonna know it. He came into the home after they were already Binks and Maggie were already there. So I've watched, and Sonia's watched as Binks has dealt with Maggie, and the sorrow of Maggie for us is already pretty deep.
right.
But to watch oh, we got a public child. Yeah, we'll have to
I thought,
in that one
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Hang
I
on,
was
you
getting
guys. Yeah,
dizzy.
we gotta. I don't know if they can hear us, but okay. Hey y'all, sorry we got Sammy if you'll do Instagram as well. We got knocked off with a Amber Alert, which I'm sure went off on your phones before I finished the thought about Binks and Maggie. Chuck says, I concur, Scott. I have experienced that and you feel helpless. And yes, they are part of our family. My condolences to you and your family. Thank you, Chuck. And
Capital ARE on R.
yes,
Okay,
thank
are
you.
part of
Are
our
part of
family.
it.
Yeah.
Yes. The thing about adding to our struggle and sorrow was it's beginning to subside just a little bit, but Binks's response to Maggie not being there has been so obvious and so clear, visible.
Hmm.
The other morning, on Saturday morning, Friday was when we had sent Maggie to heaven. Saturday morning, about 5 o'clock, I got up and Binks, who sleeps on our bed, was down on the floor sitting, was sitting like he was looking out a window, but he was staring at Maggie's bed. And I thought, he's experiencing the same thing we are. And I just there's an old adage, I won't say it right, but owning a pet is one of the greatest experiences life has to offer. But it also includes one of the most awful experiences, and that is to finally say goodbye. And we know we're going to face it with Binks and EJ one of these days. You're going to face it with Layla. Everybody's going to face it. But I just want you to know that uh, we loved Maggie the way I hope every pet owner is able to love their pet. And of course, she loved us, and it was the most wonderful experience. Uh, and we know she's in where she needs to be. And last thing I'll say is that my vision of heaven is one. I've said this to Samuel when he's younger. He won't remember it. We were at the park sitting on a bench, and it was a beautiful day. And we were just talking and father and son moment. He was about 10. And I said, son, I said, this is what I think heaven's going to be like.
Hmm.
All these angels flying around in golden streets.
Hmm.
That's not what I relate to. I relate to peace and comfort and the warmth of the sun. Like you sent me yesterday, that picture of the sun rising. Part of that includes when we get there that Maggie and those that loved us and we loved will greet us when we get there. So the idea of picturing Maggie running towards us, healthy as can be, is something I look forward to. Anything else on pets?
No, but I often think about all the people I know that I pray for every Sunday that are in heaven. But I don't think about all the dogs I've had seeing them.
Yeah.
So
My belief is that
yeah,
they'll all
and
come running.
yeah,
They'll all just like when we walked in the door. All right. Tell us about Mr. Rooter.
Mr. Rooter. Well, Mr. Rooter is a heck of a plumbing company. When you talk about somebody who started in 1970 and 50 years later, 54 years later, they're still in business. They got offices all over North America, but they got local ownership. Um, I think that's something special.
Yeah.
Um, and I tell you what, you're always going to depend on with them. Always going to get licensed experts, insured plumbers, guaranteed parts and workmanship, courteous, uniformed professionals, locally owned and operated, which we just talked about, and convenient appointment times. And they're always going to be friendly and warm with every single customer. They're going to arrive on time. They're going to provide your home with mats and shoe covers to keep it clean. They're going to give you a price before they start. They're going to deliver high quality, durable repairs, and they're going to stand behind their work to give you peace of mind. And did I mention that they do both commercial and residential? I didn't, but they do. And did I mention that they do remodel work? They're not going to do your whole house, but the two areas that people talk about being dated the most are the kitchen and the bathroom. And you get those updated, and boy, it
Yeah.
feels like a new house. And I'm telling you what, you might not be in that second or third bedroom all the time, but you're always always going to be in that bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can reach him at 469-214-5179. That is 469-214-5179, or on the web at mrrooter.com/Waxahachie.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Rooter. All right. He said segment. So I got a question for you, Jeffrey. President Lynch. You take
Promotion.
over on January, I think this year is January the 20th. You take over. I'm voted for you because I expect you're going to do some great stuff. What are you going to do? Top first three things you're going to do when you walk into that Oval Office. What are they?
You're not going to believe my first one. It's not anything you would think of. And I got three that are important,
Okay.
but I'm telling you what, immediately the Trump administration needs to promote a sense of country unity in healing. That is the that is the thing that we need. I know all the specific things we need, but I'm telling you, that's what we need because the divide in our country is so bad. The difference between the intolerance we've had whole conversations about this, but we have so much discord in this country, and we have so much healing to go that's number one,
So let me ask you
and
this.
that's a continuous thing.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. We hear politicians often, and we've heard it now. We've heard it when Biden took office in 2020. We heard it when Trump, all of them,
Yeah.
we're going to unite this country. Obama was going to be the great unifier. Uh, and so I agree. What is off the cuff? And if it doesn't come to you, just say you'd have to give that some thought. But what other than saying it could a president, any president, do that would indicate that he or she is dead serious about it?
Well, because actions speak louder than
Yes.
words. In this case, I think the words become your action. Our new president, who is our old president, one of the things that has always bothered me about him, and I know bothers a lot of other people about him, is he is critical of people. You know, Kamala in her campaign, she ran a lot against him and his policies. He ran against her. Didn't really have any policies to speak of
Hmm.
to run against, but he was critical of her as a person,
Yeah.
and he's always been critical of
Yeah.
people. He needs to learn to put a little trap, put a little trap on it,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Miss Clark said that this morning that
did she?
she said,
Okay.
Trump, why does, she didn't ask me a question, but essentially she was saying, why does Trump have to call Kamala Harris dumb or stupid? Or Mrs. Clark said, I've never heard him say it, but maybe he did, that she's retarded, which is a word
I
we don't
hate it when
use.
I hear that.
But I agree. And so when I think about what it is someone could do, and Trump has done a little bit of it with Bobby Kennedy and with
Mhm.
Tulsi Gabbard, uh, but those two have not ever really been known to be the kind of left that's out to get Trump. So is it feasible or is it possible that Trump could say, okay, of those who have been really after him, I mean, even including some that were wanting him to be impeached, other stuff, could there be something done, like name one of those people? He'd have to trust them, and they'd have to trust him to his cabinet or to a non-cabinet position, or that they work on a project together. Um, it's when I see that kind of thing that I start to believe
Mhm.
they've laid down the
Sure.
hatchets.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right, now when you get to the specifics, I got three big issues, and we can talk about immigration. That's not a quick fix. We can talk about the economy. That's not a quick fix.
Hmm.
But the one I think that could be a quick fix, and and our man Donald has been known to make some boasts about his abilities to do different things,
Yeah.
but he did say that he could end the war in Israel and in Ukraine in like a week. And I think he also said he could end it before he steps into office. And guess what? There is nothing stopping him. I think the world, unlike the last election, the world knows how this ended. It's done. There's not going to be any change.
Hmm.
He's going to be the president.
Right.
And he does know these leaders.
Hmm.
And he can make contact with them
Sure.
right now. And he can start discussions. And he could, what are we pointing out?
Eric,
Oh,
fan.
so I think he can get that done fast.
Hmm.
And I think that ought to be priority one because of the ability to do it fast.
Yeah. So and he has said that exactly, that he's going to wait until he's sitting in the Oval Office,
Right.
that he can do it between now and January. And the question for me is how one does will he be trying to do things that, although lame duck now, that the current administration, Biden and Harris, would be saying, no, we are in power. We don't want you doing. We don't want you working with Putin right now to try to figure this out, or
I didn't think
Netanyahu.
about that.
So I don't know whether or not if Biden and Harris believed that Trump was starting to make progress in the efforts that he is making before January the 20th, isn't the hope that Biden and Harris would say, do it, stop this stuff? Or would politics take over and them say, you're not going
You
to show
know,
us up like that?
I
Yeah, that's a tough one,
you
right?
know, in my philanthropic thought world,
Yeah,
I don't think I thought about that.
yeah. Well, that would be my hope, and it will be interesting to see what Trump does with respect to those wars. I think those wars will end, and I got to believe that both on the Ukraine and Putin, that they both want it to end. I mean, Putin, he's taking a butt kicking too in many, many ways. So I believe it's all right for these to end. And of course, the one component out of all the four that are involved in these things, which are Ukraine and Russia, I believe they want somebody to come in and help them in this thing. When you get to Israel and Hamas or Hezbollah, uh, I don't. There's only one of those two that really want there to be peace. So how do you make peace? It's like the compromise questions. How do you compromise with somebody that wants to obliterate you off the planet? So I think that one's a little bit more challenging. But I also see Trump saying to Hezbollah and Hamas, stop, or we are going to blow you away. Trump's that you heard
Don't
him
you
say
think?
it.
Don't you think Hamas is a little bit tired of getting obliterated?
You would
And
think.
this and the same thing with Ukraine. Now, I do believe that uh, Zelensky won't like the solution, but I think there will have to be a land concession for that to happen.
Hmm.
But let's
Well, let's see what Trump does.
and let's recall that Ukraine was once part of the
Yeah,
USSR,
it was.
part of the Soviet
It was.
regime
It was.
for a long time.
It was.
So, you know,
You know,
they're kind of the breakaway state. It's
yeah,
trying, you know, Russia wants the breakaway back.
yeah. I think the current administration is going to have to realize that Trump is going to do things that he said he's going to do, and that if they can put their pride down and put the country first, the world first, that they would support Trump getting it done, as opposed to saying, "Don't show us up." Anything else on your end?
Well, I'm not telling you how to solve immigration, but I know it needs to be solved. We need to get the border shut, and we need to get the 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 people that got in illegally that are the troublemakers out.
Yeah.
Uh, let's go to the economy and inflation. And the trouble with the inflation has been it's a cumulative thing. You're up 2%, and now you're up 2% of 2%, and now
Hmm.
you're up 5% of 4%.
Hmm.
Okay. Now you're up
Compounding.
two
Yeah.
percent of 9%, and it
Right.
just keeps going and going and going.
Right.
So the compounded inflation, you're somewhere at the 25% range. So if we could get it to not go up anymore, that's great. But guess what? We're still up to 25. And maybe there's a way to incentivize businesses to get prices rolled backwards.
Hmm.
So that 25 now becomes an effective 22
Yeah.
and then maybe 21.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to come all the way back to, but if we could find a way to incentivize people to roll back prices,
Yeah. I
wild.
I would agree. I think Trump his what I expect of Trump with respect to inflation is that he gets back to where it was when he left office. All these things that I gave Mrs. Walker. I said, Miss Walker, can I give you one thing before our conversation ends? And I said the sources of this are the government, the government. So it's not me giving you something I created or somebody on the right. These are the government statistics, and it showed the difference between Biden and Trump with respect to the economy. So when I look at the Trump piece of it, I say, okay, that's Trump. That's what I'm holding Trump accountable to. You've been
Right.
talking all this time. You're going to fix it. You're going to get it better. Then get it back to where it was when you left. And it's going to take some time, but get it back there.
It's not going to happen overnight, but you got 4 years to do it.
Exactly.
Right.
And with respect to the border, the thing that he can do immediately is shut the border. No more coming in. He can't. He's got to. It's going to take time to get the ones that are here out.
Right.
But he can now. Well, I don't know if he can do it now because I do think
No,
that
he can't.
Biden's would say,
Yeah, yeah.
But on January 20th, he can shut that border down so that no more are coming in. That's at the very least, what I expect him to do.
Right.
Chuck has made a comment. I think that one of the agreements between Russia and Ukraine will be that Ukraine, that the NATO aspect of the Ukraine whole Ukraine saga is NATO, and that Chuck says Zelensky won't like that, but I think it'll be a part of the Trump Putin Zelensky deal. I think he's onto that. I think he's onto to one of the pieces of this.
Do you know Chuck?
I don't.
Chuck.
I feel like I know Chuck by him being a viewer.
And Sam, I can't see that picture very well. He's dressed up nicely. Is that a military uniform he's got on? Yeah.
What are you looking at?
The little picture that's.
There. Yeah, Chuck served. I do know that Chuck served in one of the branches, but I can't tell. But I do think that's an important part of it.
Thanks, Chuck. You're level-headed. We'd like to hear a comment from you every show.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think we've ever heard from Chuck, have we?
We have.
Oh, have we?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And Chuck has reached out to me privately as well. But
good.
So Trump's got some very positive, obvious, tangible things he can do. Shut the border down, then start dealing with it. He can begin to address this waste immediately. He's going to put Elon Musk says there's $2 trillion of waste that he believes he can get rid of. Imagine that.
That's probably conservative.
If true. And so Trump can begin that process immediately. I do think that there's a way to embrace somebody on the left that, just like he did with the Kemp in Georgia is not on the left, but Kemp, the governor of Georgia, and Trump despised each other in 2020 as a result of 2020, and now they've come back together. So there are some things he can do. All right. What time is it? That's either me in 1984 working, or that's rhyme time.
Ching ching. It is rhyme
time.
In my ongoing effort to try to keep my poems timely, I was able to cull something out of this book of 7 pieces of wisdom. Latest.
Okay, good.
Latest hindsights. And it speaks to the issue that we're talking about healing and unity, and it speaks to the issue. And actually, I think this might have been Kamala saying it more than Donald. Did she used to say, "We're more alike than different"?
Yes.
Did she say? Did I say that exactly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's more that we
agree on than disagree on.
Yes.
Okay. So, and I think that's true. And it's a matter of perspective, isn't it?
It is.
And there's that deal where, these trial lawyers, they'll do these different things, and they'll have people watch the same thing, and they've got a different outlook.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yep.
So this poem I happened to write one day when I was pulling cotton picking gorgeous Bermuda grass out of my garden. Bear in mind, I've got a border. It's a cement border. Okay. But it's getting from my yard into the garden. And we're always pulling out weeds and grass. Okay. And I just sat down in an oddball moment, and I started writing something called perspective. The difference between a weed and a flower is really quite scant. It's a flower if you want it. Otherwise, it's just a plant. In either meadow or garden, this rule does pertain. If you like it, you'll maintain. Otherwise, it's just a pain. Grass also follows this rule. The lawn gets a manicure. But with grass in your garden, there's no lasting cure. See, the grass is now a weed because it has no need.
yeah.
In the lawn, it was your prize, but in the garden, you do despise. So be mindful of your outlook. You may see a flower, others see a weed. Choose one or the other. You're both right, indeed.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Yeah, that's there's this old thing to that point. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's I don't want to blow it because I want to use it again somewhere. But say you got 100 people in a room. You give
Okay.
everybody an envelope with a sentence in it.
Okay.
Okay, same sentence, but they don't know what's the same sentence. They think they got a different sentence, each of them. And so you say, okay, count for me how many F's, the letter F is in your sentence. And so give them 5 minutes, they count them up. Then you say, okay, how many of you?
Wait. Do they get a look at it again, or do they got to do it
No,
in their
they
head?
got no. They get to hold it.
Okay.
They can look at it all the whole
All right.
time.
Yeah, I can
But
count my
how
F's.
many F's are in the sentence? And I've done this dozens of times in various places I've been to prove the point that we can look at the same thing and see something different. But then you say, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you believe there's one F in your sentence? Well, there might be a few people raise their hand. How many believe two? There are more people raise. How many three? Raise their hand. How many four? Going so up to 10. And so at every level, people are raising their hand. Then the guy comes back and says, let me read the sentence I've got. He reads the sentence. It's the same. Everybody's got the same sentence. And he says, the answer is 6. There are 6 F's in that sentence. But out of you 100 people, 50% of you got it right. The rest of you read the same sentence and came away with something incorrect or different.
Which shouldn't be that hard to do.
Isn't it? It's really a dramatic thing to watch. Lisa Aikens, very sorry for your loss of Maggie. Thank you, Lisa. I've had 2 dogs pass away at 16. One I had a funeral and buried with a headstone. I never visit the pet cemetery. The last pet was my 16-year-old pure Cocker Spaniel, and had her cremated. Having her ashes in a box where she slept has brought me so much joy. God bless you and your family. Same to you, Lisa. And it's remarkable, isn't it? It's just remarkable. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right,
All right.
it's now 12:52. Time for Today in History.
Sam's got the rules up. You get one to get it
Lay
right, one to get it wrong. You get a bonus to hit it directly or on a particular fact. We do have one fact bonus. In this case, it's somebody's name. We go oldest to newest, as always. And here we go. Jeanette Rankin, Rankin, of Montana, won election to the United States House of Representatives, becoming the first woman elected to either chamber of commerce. First
Congress.
Congress. She was a House of Representatives.
Okay.
First one in either chamber from Montana. Sammy's got no answer, shaking his head. We're not going to force an answer.
Well, it's got to be 1893. I don't know. We always start back in the old days.
I know.
I mean,
1893 is your answer.
yeah. What's the date?
The answer was 1916. And I had trouble with it also. I went the other way. Here's the incredible thing. When did women get the right to vote? Hello, thank you very much,
Sammy's
Sam.
becoming a historian. He's Waxahachie's new Charlie Kirk.
So can you imagine in Montana that they elected a woman to Congress before women can
Yeah,
vote?
that's crazy.
That's
is
amazing.
crazy. Yeah,
That's
that is.
amazing.
Good point.
You're getting 2 points because that was a bonus question.
He'll still
right.
lose.
Well, and he took a pass on the first one. Here we go. Russia's Bolshevik Revolution took place as forces led by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin overthrew the provisional government of Alexander Kerensky. Did you like my Ilyich?
Yeah, that was good.
Thank you.
1945.
1917.
Oh, yeah, 1 year. That's not good. 1 year difference. We went from 1916 to 1917.
Right.
Oh, that's bad. Okay.
Well, you don't start overthinking this thing.
I'm not. I'm 0 for 2.
Washington's state original Tacoma narrow bridge named Galloping Getty collapsed into Puget Sound during a windstorm just 4 months after opening to traffic. It was the Narrows Bridge. Not
That's not
because it
good.
was narrow, it went
Yeah,
through the
that ain't
Narrows.
good. I did
Eh,
like to be that whatever they call them, architect,
Galloping Gertie,
engineer. 1951.
1940. And I
Oh
put
for
down
3.
34. Okay, all right.
Man,
FDR. What does FDR stand for?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
You knew that. Okay. Franklin Delano Roosevelt won an unprecedented fourth, count 'em, 4 terms in office, defeating Republican blank. Bonus for who he defeated. He won an unprecedented fourth term. In what year?
1952, and he defeated. I could be all wrong. I don't know the answer, but I'm taking a stab at Truman. I'm just so
You, you,
disconnected
you,
in
you,
years.
you, you're killing me there,
All
dude.
right.
Okay. It was in 1944. He won his fourth term, and he defeated Dewey,
Oh
who
yeah.
Truman,
Oh, that's
who
yeah.
Truman defeated again in 48. How about Dewey
I
losing it twice in a
yeah.
row?
Poor Dewey.
Did
It wa-
anybody ever lose 2 presidential elections in a row? We'd have to
Oh,
check
that's a
that.
good
That is a
question.
good one.
I believe so.
FDR was it? No, he was a Republican.
Was he?
FDR was a Democrat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm struggling today.
President Richard Nixon was reelected in a landscape over Democrat George McGovern.
68.
68 was his first election.
Ah.
72.
Oh, I still got it. So at least I saved face.
Boy, you.
I'm 1-4. I need a
I-
serious bonus.
So I got 2 bonuses in a row there. I got
Okay.
the
What was
L
the answer? 74? No,
72.
72. Yeah.
72. L. Douglas Wilder won the governor's race in Virginia,
Mhm.
becoming the first elected black governor in U.S. history. And David N. Dinkins, can you imagine having the name Dinkins?
New York.
Was elected New York's first black mayor. They both were elected the same year,
92.
89. Both score.
Good, Sammy.
A jury in Los Angeles convicted Michael Jackson's Dr. Conrad Murray of involuntary manslaughter for supplying a powerful anesthetic implicated in the entertainer's 2009 death. Parentheses. Murray was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served 2 years and was released in, I'm not going to tell you when.
There's a clue in there. So it's not that same year, but that is when Jackson died, is 2009.
Implicated in the entertainer's death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say 2012.
2011. I also said 12.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, I just thought, 3 years. But
Yeah.
you know what? To get anybody convicted
Yeah, it
anymore
takes
in 2
forever.
years, that's like record time.
So you were 7-2?
I was 7-2.
Dang.
Thank you.
I was 3-4 today. Sammy was
you.
probably better than me because you got bonuses.
You get the bonuses.
Holy Moses. All right, very good.
Very
Learn
good.
something new every day. All right, it's
You got a meme here
well,
still.
I've got to mention our third sponsor real quick.
Oh,
'cause
that's
I
right.
forgot to do that.
Let's get
Pier
that in.
7 Seafood on Interstate 35 in Lancaster on the right side of the interstate going north. Pier 7
At the Beltline exit.
Yeah, Beltline. That's right. Pier 7 is a seafood restaurant, really nice, relatively new, great people, great food, lots of great specials. Would encourage you to give it a shot. You'll really enjoy that seafood in Lancaster. All right. All right. Meme of the day. Sammy, tell me when you got it up, and I did not make a copy of it. So man, even the air outside sounds more affordable today. Isn't that right? So Tuesday night, we're all tense, we're all worried, we're all like, "Oh my gosh, is this country gonna turn the page?" And
If I could turn back the page.
yeah, and so
Here's the time.
and so Trump wins, and I think there's a sigh of relief, at least for those of us that believe he will do better even than he did in the first term, and that is to make our economy better. There was a sigh of like, okay, now let's go for
An
it.
audible sigh.
Let's go for it. All right. So thank you for being with us. We enjoy it. Thank you for your comments. We really enjoy that part of it. You can reach either of us, Scott at waxahachiesun.com, Jeff at waxahachiesun.com. And we'll be back on Tuesday at noon. And we look forward to seeing you then.
And as always, please remember, don't write a check you can't cash.